I'm sure that you've noticed that all of the men that have spoken today have spoken of the wonderful traits, talents of this tremendous person that we've come to celebrate his life today. But as I got to thinking about it, more than all of his other accomplishments, Stanley was a committed Christian. He was saved as a child. The church was a critical part of his life, and all of his life. He was at church every time the doors were open. He was willing to serve God in any capacity that he could. I thought of the way the Apostle Paul described the man, and I thought how it would fit the life of Stanley as well. Paul said, "Therefore, my beloved brethren, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that your labor is not in vain in the Lord." And Stanley has proven to be steadfast and to be faithful. And in the midst of adversity, he remained sweet in his spirit and consistently demonstrated himself as a man of integrity. God bless his memory to each of our hearts.
I have chosen for the scripture reading today, at least for one of the scripture readings, the very first Psalm, Debbie, because I think this really captures the heart of who Stanley was. It says in the first few verses of Psalm number 1, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the path of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. He shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that brings forth its fruit in its season, whose leaf also shall not wither, and whatever he does shall prosper." And as we think about Stanley's life, that was him. Here's a man, as the pastor has just reminded us, who loved God, who walked with God, who loved his family, who had his priorities right, who had his house in order, loved his students, loved his job, loved his life. You know, I'm reminded of that verse in the Bible where Jesus said, "I have come that you might have life, and that you might have it more abundantly." And anybody who knew Stanley Oaks knew he lived the abundant life. He lived the abundant flamboyant life, right? I mean, he had that abundant life down. I never saw him when he was not upbeat. I never saw him when he was not in a happy mood. I mean, I just never saw Stanley down. And if you think about all the things and all the opportunities that he has had in his lifetime, as well as I felt like I knew Stanley, I didn't know some of these things myself. Did you know that Stanley has played at several Republican national conventions? I didn't know that. He has played for President and Mrs. Bush in their home.
Come on.
I think he and Debbie both were in on that one. He also played at Neil Bush's wedding. And this is appropriate while I'm talking about the Bushes, he spent a lot of time watching Fox News.
Come on. Come on. Come on.
I'm going to say it just right. He had the premium membership to the Bill O'Reilly fan club. And
there you go.
He didn't have much free time and spare time, but what he did, he had it on Fox News. He played for numerous Broadway shows. He played for Smokey Robinson. Now, how many people do you know this can be set up? He even played for Michael Jackson. I mean, that is something else to me. He played for George Foreman's niece's wedding. And when Stanley was not with you guys at school or one of your events, and when he was not at the Nazarene Church leading you guys over there, or at First Baptist helping us over here, this guy was on the go. I mean, he used to, and I understand at your high school that if I have it right, Friday is casual day. And Stanley used to honor that day by wearing a tuxedo to school on Friday. But the reason he did that, he was not trying to be belligerent or anything like that. He, on Friday nights, was playing in one of these different events, and sometimes more than one in a day. And Debbie even shared with me that, and I don't know how he did this, but he had mastered the art of changing clothes while driving his car. That is not recommended today for anybody else in the But Stanley could somehow do that. He had to change his outfit, his wardrobe. He could do it, driving down 45. So he was quite the guy. Now, at the Nazarene Church, and I'm sure at the school, Stanley was known for awards. He would give you guys awards when there was a performance or an event. And so the family shared with me earlier this week that they had made some awards for Stanley that they wanted me to present on his behalf today. And the first award that Stanley has been awarded is the world's best procrastinator. That's how they describe him. They said he put it off to the last minute, but he could pull every program off to perfection, even though he gave several people a nervous breakdown in the process. He had a way of making a choir of 20 people sound like it was a choir of 50 people. He believed that a true sign of a job well done was chocolate. He was a chocoholic. And so you guys, through the years, have all probably received some chocolate from Stanley. One of the things they told me, this is not really an award, this is just something that's interesting. Stanley, of course, lived in a house full of women. And yet, when they were getting ready to go somewhere, the women are always dressed and ready before he was, because he wanted to make sure that he was just right. And one of the things Debbie said about him, and I thought it was just such a compliment, she said, John, he was the consummate gentleman in every single way. And one of those people who just made life fun, lived it to the fullest, didn't take himself too seriously. You know, the thing about Stanley, he took